Breaking news from the edge of our solar system. At 2:14 a.m. UTC this morning, January 14, 2026, astronomers at the European Southern Observatory detected something that should not be possible. 3I Atlas, the interstellar comet that has captivated the scientific community for months, has begun decelerating. Not gradually, as one might expect from gravitational interactions, but abruptly, systematically, as if responding to an invisible command. Within hours, observatories across 3 continents confirmed what the initial data suggested. The comet is aligning itself with our Sun. And it's not random. The alignment will reach geometric perfection on January 22nd at precisely 11:47 GMT. Today, the impossible just happened, and in 8 days we may witness something that changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos. If you want to stay ahead of these cosmic revelations, hit that like button and subscribe. What's unfolding above us right now demands your attention, because this isn't just about a comet anymore. The discovery came from Dr. Elena Vasquez at the Paranal Observatory in Chile, operating the Very Large Telescope's infrared array. She had been tracking 3I Atlas through its routine trajectory when her screen registered an anomaly. The comet's velocity, which had been holding steady at 61.3 kilometers per second relative to the Sun, dropped by 0.7 kilometers per second in less than 4 minutes. To put that in perspective, such a deceleration would require the comet to expel nearly 20% of its total mass in a directed thrust, yet no corresponding outgassing plume appeared in any spectral band, no debris field, no thermal signature, just deceleration, clean and controlled. Within 20 minutes, Vasquez had relayed her findings to the International Astronomical Union's Central Bureau. By 3 a.m., NASA's Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California had confirmed the readings. By 4:30 a.m., the James Webb Space Telescope had been reoriented toward 3I Atlas, interrupting a scheduled galactic survey. By dawn, ESA headquarters in Darmstadt, Germany had convened an emergency session with representatives from Caltech, Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, and the Max Planck Institute. The message was clear: we are witnessing controlled motion. And control implies intention. The timeline is everything. Let me walk you through what happened hour by hour, because the pattern emerging from this data is unlike anything in the astronomical record. 72 hours before the deceleration event, on January 11th, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile detected a faint electromagnetic pulse emanating from 3I Atlas. Duration, 0.003 seconds. Frequency, 1.42 gigahertz, the hydrogen line, the universal frequency astronomers use to search for extraterrestrial signals because it cuts through cosmic noise. At the time, researchers dismissed it as instrumental artifact or cosmic ray hit. 24 hours later, it happened again. Same frequency, same duration, same source. This time, radio telescopes at the Very Large Array in New Mexico were listening. They caught it too. 48 hours before deceleration, on January 12th at 6:22 p.m. UTC, the Hubble Space Telescope captured something extraordinary during a routine imaging pass. The comet's coma, that cloud of gas and dust surrounding its nucleus, had changed shape. Previously symmetric and teardrop-like, it had developed a sharp geometric edge on one side, as if something beneath the gas was deflecting material along a precise vector. Spectroscopic analysis revealed the gas composition had shifted. Carbon dioxide levels, previously dominant, had dropped by 18%. Water vapor had increased proportionally. Temperature readings from the nucleus showed an inexplicable warming trend, rising from 180 Kelvin to 220 Kelvin with no corresponding increase in solar radiation. 24 hours before deceleration, the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite, which maps stellar positions with unprecedented precision, registered something that sent a quiet alarm through ESA's data center. 3I Atlas had shifted position by 840 kilometers perpendicular to its trajectory, not along its path, which would suggest outgassing or gravitational perturbation, but perpendicular, a lateral displacement that violated every predictive model. Dr. Johann Kessler at ESA ran the numbers 6 times. Each iteration confirmed the same conclusion. The comet had moved sideways through space. Then came the deceleration, and with it, the alignment. At 2:14 a.m. this morning, as 3I Atlas slowed, observatories worldwide began calculating its new trajectory. The results were uniform and unsettling. The comet was no longer following a hyperbolic escape path out of the solar system. It had entered what mission controllers are calling a holding pattern, maintaining a distance of 4.7 astronomical units from the Sun, roughly between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. But it wasn't orbiting. It wasn't moving tangentially at all. It was positioning itself along a direct line between Earth and the Sun. Heliocentric alignment, with our planet precisely in the middle. Dr. Sarah Chen, astrophysicist at Caltech, described the geometry during an emergency video conference I watched early this morning. She used the word "intremendous" 11 times in 15 minutes. Her voice, usually measured and calm, carried an edge I'd never heard before. The alignment, she explained, would reach mathematical perfection on January 22nd. At that moment, 3I Atlas, the Sun and Earth would form a straight line with angular deviation of less than 0.001 degrees. In astronomical terms, that is effectively zero. Perfect collinearity across 700 million kilometers of space. No natural process produces such precision. Gravitational interactions are chaotic. Comets tumble, outgas asymmetrically, fragment unpredictably. They do not navigate. They do not position themselves. Yet here we are, watching an interstellar object execute a maneuver that would require real-time course corrections and an understanding of celestial mechanics. The mainstream explanation being offered by NASA's Public Affairs Office is that we're witnessing a statistical coincidence amplified by confirmation bias. That 3I Atlas is simply experiencing normal cometary activity that happens to appear structured due to our limited observational perspective. But the scientists I've spoken with, off the record, don't believe that, and neither do I. Let me show you why. In the 16 hours since deceleration began, 3I Atlas has emitted 4 more electromagnetic pulses, not random, not arbitrary. The interval between each pulse has been exactly 3 hours and 7 minutes. That's 1,122 seconds, a prime number. The second pulse occurred at a frequency of 1.66 gigahertz, the third at 2.14 gigahertz, the fourth at 2.83 gigahertz. Do you see it? The ratio between consecutive frequencies forms a mathematical progression, 1.29, 1.29, 1.32. These are not quantum fluctuations. These are not plasma instabilities. These are structured signals with internal mathematical relationships. Dr. Avi Loeb's team at Harvard ran the sequence through every known natural emission mechanism: pulsar timing, magnetar bursts, coronal mass ejections. Nothing fits. The precision is too high, the repetition too exact, and the timing, aligned with the comet's deceleration and positional change, suggests coordination between physical motion and electromagnetic output. One researcher who requested anonymity told me this morning it's talking and it's moving into position to be heard. The investigation intensified at noon UTC today. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena activated the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex, the most sensitive radio telescope in the agency's network, dedicating its full aperture to 3I Atlas. Simultaneously, ESA directed the Sobrero station in Spain and the new Norcia station in Australia to begin continuous monitoring. The Breakthrough Listen project, based at UC Berkeley and dedicated to searching for technosignatures, received emergency funding to join the effort. Within 6 hours, they had assembled the most comprehensive radio survey ever conducted of a single solar system object. What they found is still being analyzed, but preliminary reports, leaked through informal channels, describe a low-level carrier wave emanating from the comet's nucleus. Constant, unmodulated, sitting just below the noise floor at 400 megahertz. It's been there the entire time, they now realize, hidden beneath the background radiation. Only by stacking hundreds of observations and filtering out galactic interference did the signal emerge. It's weak, barely detectable, but it is there. A hum, a continuous tone broadcasting into the void. Or broadcasting toward us. At 4 p.m. UTC today, Dr. Nathalie Dubois at the Institut d'Astrophysics of Paris released a modeling study that has not yet been peer-reviewed but is already circulating among the astronomical community. Her team simulated the gravitational environment around 3I Atlas to determine whether any combination of solar wind pressure, radiation effects, or orbital resonances could explain the observed behavior. They tested 50,000 scenarios. None produced a match. The closest approximation required the comet to possess an internal mass distribution so asymmetric it would have fragmented under its own rotation centuries ago. In other words, the object's structural integrity contradicts the motion it's performing unless something is compensating, actively stabilizing the nucleus while executing positional changes. Dubois didn't speculate on what that something might be, but her conclusion was unambiguous. 3I Atlas is not behaving like a passive body subject to natural forces. It is behaving like an object under active control. Then, at 7:32 p.m. UTC this evening, the situation escalated in a way no one anticipated. The James Webb Space Telescope, still focused on 3I Atlas, captured an infrared signature that defies conventional interpretation. Deep within the comet's nucleus, beneath kilometers of ice and rock, something is generating heat. Not solar heat, not radioactive decay. The thermal emission pattern shows a localized hotspot measuring approximately 200 meters in diameter, radiating at 310 Kelvin. That's above the freezing point of water. In the frozen heart of an interstellar comet, something is warm. And the heat distribution isn't diffuse, it's geometric, a nearly perfect circle of elevated temperature surrounded by material at background levels. Thermal engineers at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center reviewed the data within an hour. Their assessment, no known geological or chemical process can generate such a confined, sustained heat source in a cometary environment. Radioactive isotopes would produce a gradient. Impact heating would dissipate rapidly. Cryovolcanism would create surface vents. This heat is internal, stable, and bounded, as if insulated, as if contained. I spoke with Dr. Marcus Holt, a planetary scientist who has studied cometary thermodynamics for 20 years. He described the Webb observation as thermodynamically incoherent with a natural origin. When I pressed him on what that meant, he paused for a long time before answering. It means, he said slowly, that we're looking at something designed to generate and maintain heat, purposefully. Global reaction has been carefully controlled. NASA issued a brief statement this afternoon acknowledging unusual activity associated with 3I Atlas and confirming that multiple assets are monitoring the object. ESA echoed the language. No alarm, no speculation, just confirmation that something is happening and that it's being watched. But behind the public statements, a different story is unfolding. Sources within the European Space Operations Center report that internal communications have shifted to encrypted channels as of this morning. Mission controllers at NASA's Johnson Space Center have been placed on extended shifts. The U.S. Space Force, rarely involved in purely scientific observations, quietly tasked a reconnaissance satellite to provide supplementary tracking data. And at the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs in Vienna, an unscheduled briefing was held this afternoon from member state representatives. No public readout was provided. Meanwhile, effects are beginning to register here on Earth. Minor, barely perceptible, but measurable. At 9 a.m. UTC, monitoring stations in Norway detected a brief perturbation in Earth's magnetosphere, a fluctuation of 3.2 nanotesla lasting approximately 90 seconds. Similar anomalies were recorded in Canada, Siberia, and Antarctica within the same 10-minute window. Geomagnetic disturbances are common, typically driven by solar wind or coronal mass ejections, but the sun has been quiet for days. Solar observatories show no flare activity, no particle streams. The perturbation came from elsewhere. Could it have been 3I Atlas? Directional analysis from the Supermag network, a global array of ground-based magnetometers, suggests the disturbance originated from the comet's position in space. If true, it would mean 3I Atlas is capable of projecting an electromagnetic influence across 700 million kilometers. That would require energy output comparable to a stellar flare, yet Webb detected no corresponding emission. Whatever mechanism is at work, it's operating in a regime of physics we don't yet understand. Satellite operators have reported transient signal interference affecting 2 GPS satellites in medium Earth orbit and 1 communications relay in geostationary position. The interference lasted less than a minute and caused no service disruption, but telemetry logs show the satellites momentarily lost lock on their atomic clocks. Time synchronization drifted by 18 nanoseconds before automatic correction protocols restored accuracy. Again, no obvious cause, no solar radiation, no terrestrial jamming, just a brief, sourceless disruption that coincided with the magnetic anomaly. And then there are the birds. Ornithologists in the northern hemisphere have noted unusual migratory behavior over the past 48 hours. Flocks of geese and cranes, species that navigate using Earth's magnetic field, have been observed circling or reversing course mid-flight, as if momentarily disoriented. Wildlife monitoring stations in Sweden and Alaska documented 19 separate incidents. The behavior normalized within hours, but the timing is difficult to ignore. Birds, ancient navigators, responding to something subtle in the planetary field. These could all be coincidences, unrelated events clustered by chance in a narrow time window, but I've been following cosmic phenomena for long enough to recognize when patterns emerge from noise, and this is a pattern. 8 days from now, on January 22nd at 11:47 GMT, 3I Atlas will complete its alignment. Sun, Earth, Comet, arranged in a perfect line. What happens at that moment, no one can say with certainty. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps the alignment is coincidental after all, a transient geometric arrangement that will dissolve as the comet resumes its original trajectory and vanishes back into the interstellar dark. Or perhaps the alignment is the reason for everything we've observed. The deceleration, the signals, the heat, the preparation. There's a scenario being discussed quietly among researchers, a possibility too speculative for official statements but too compelling to dismiss. It goes like this. 3I Atlas is not a comet in the traditional sense. It's a probe, an artifact sent from another stellar system, perhaps billions of years ago, designed to investigate planetary environments. It has traveled through the galaxy for eons, passing through star systems, scanning for signs of habitability, of life, of intelligence. Most systems it encounters are barren, dead rocks and gas giants orbiting indifferent stars. But occasionally, very rarely, it finds something interesting. A world with liquid water, an atmosphere rich in oxygen, radio emissions, artificial lights visible from space. When it finds such a world, it doesn't simply pass by. It stops, it positions itself, it listens. And then, when conditions are optimal, when geometry permits maximum signal clarity, it transmits, not to us, to whoever sent it, a message across light years, a report on what it has found. January 22nd, the day of alignment, may be that transmission. If this is true, and I emphasize we have no proof, only inference and speculation, then we are about to witness first contact, not in the way science fiction imagined, with ships descending from the sky, but in a quieter, more profound way, the confirmation that we are not alone, that someone, somewhere, built something capable of crossing the void between stars and sent it to find us. And they did. But there's another interpretation, one that Dr. Holt mentioned and then immediately regretted.
What if the alignment isn't for transmission? What if it's for something else? The heat source inside the nucleus, the electromagnetic pulses, the precise positioning. These could be activation sequences, preparation for an event we can't yet anticipate. Perhaps 3I Atlas isn't reporting our presence. Perhaps it's responding to it.
Control rooms around the world are quiet tonight. Screens glow with trajectories and spectra. Telescopes track a point of light creeping across the constellation Virgo. Scientists who have spent careers studying rocks and ice are now confronting questions they never expected to ask. Is it watching us? Does it know we're here? And what will happen when the alignment is complete? I remember staring at the data feed from Webb earlier today, watching the infrared image refresh every few minutes, that hot circle buried in the comet's core pulsing faintly on the screen. And I thought, maybe we're not witnessing the end of something. Maybe we're witnessing an invitation, a signal fire lit across the dark, showing us we were never truly alone. Or maybe it's a warning. In 8 days, we'll know. The countdown is underway. Observatories will remain locked on target. Radio telescopes will listen. Satellites will monitor for anomalies. And on January 22nd at 11:47 GMT, when the Sun, Earth, and 3I Atlas fall into perfect alignment, the universe may answer a question humanity has asked for millennia. What happens next is beyond prediction, but it's no longer beyond observation. We are living through a moment that will be remembered, studied, and debated for generations. The moment when an object from another star entered our solar system and decided to stay. The moment when cosmic silence gave way to signal. The moment when we realized the universe was not indifferent to our existence. It was paying attention. Subscribe now to follow every update as this story unfolds. Because whatever happens on January 22nd, the world will never be quite the same. The alignment is coming, and we're all watching the sky.